Tzadik Vav Amid Bais on the bottom. We didn't finish. We were stuck in a piece, and it was time for Shachris.
Yeah. Can I use your phone at 6 o'clock? Sure. I forgot mine. Yeah, mine. Not now at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Was it on the days?
Yeah, on the days.
Tzadik Vav
Amid Bais. Okay, the Gemara here had a statement from Rabbi Yochanan that says that if a table that's turned over, but on the bottom of it has a frame, so even though it's made out of wood, but it could still be makabel tumah. And he's saying that this would be, according to the opinion, that the shulchan has the frame underneath the tabletop. He says that according to the other opinion, I don't know, but the frame is on top. There's no proof that what if the frame was underneath. So we said, but who says the shulchan is tamei? Not tamei. Who says the shulchan needs to be makabel tamah, susceptible to tamah? We said because shulchan atar. It says that the shulchan was pure. That means that it could have been impure. It has to be pure. That means that it needs to be susceptible.
There's wood there, so that you're saying that there's a havamina that it might not be susceptible to tumah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's called pshute creates a plain board of wood.
Right.
Is not necessarily susceptible to tumah. So we quoted a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, the Mishnah in Kalim, it says that there were certain tabletops that were covered in stone. And stone is not susceptible to tumah. So we said, do we consider it the inside, or do we consider it the plating? What do you consider? Like this. This has what's this called on the top? Formica?
Formica.
What is formica made out of? Is it a plastic?
Vinyl probably, yeah.
Poison.
So what do you consider it? Do you consider it the wood that's inside or the vinyl that's on the outside? What is this considered?
Is there a difference if it's a table that's significant compared to a table that's significant?
Very good.
We're talking about
very good. The Gemara is going to say that.
What's
The
the
Gemara is going to say that.
What
He's saying that. Okay, let me just explain what Rabbi Dai is saying. What we're discussing now is we have a wooden table. Is it susceptible to tumah? So the Gemara says, 1 second. It's a wooden table, but it's quoted, but it's covered. It's covered. It's plated. It's plated with gold. So why is he calling it wood? It's really gold. And I'll prove it to you that you go after the coating. Why? Because if it's coated in marble, so then it's not tamei. That means that what the Mishnah actually says is that if you plate it with marble, then if you leave an area unplated, uncovered, so then it's makabel tamah.
Is there a
and that's where
specific
we're
measurement?
holding. Yeah, actually there is. It says how much needs to be left. It's machlekes Tanakam and Rabbi Yehuda. Tanakam said makam menachos kaisos, and Rabbi Yehuda says makam menachos chatichas. So this is where we're up to. But whatever the case is, shear in, like shear like. That if it was left a little bit, Tzadik Vav Amid Bais on the bottom, if it was left a little bit unplated, then it's going to be tamei. Why? Because the plating in this case is exactly the opposite of the plating in our case. The plating by the marble makes it not tamei. Plating by our case should make it tamei. That's our question.
The person who's tamei is not allowed to enter the azara.
Yeah.
So how does anything become tamei?
We're not talking about if it's actually tamei. We're talking about if it's susceptible to tamei. And the problem is that it's a tabletop it's just a plain board. The v'chi if we can say, maybe we can make a difference between two types of platings. And then we'll get, right after this, we'll get to Rabbi Gedalia's question. Maybe there's two types of plating. One is, there's two types in here in Taisus. One is, if the plating was hammered nailed onto the wood, then it becomes a real plating, and then we follow the plating. Or if we say tzipur she'einaim, that it wasn't attached, and then you follow the inside. And by the shulchan, we'll say that the gold was not really nailed on to the wood. so we'll say that we're still going to follow the wood. And that's our whole discussion, because it's considered a wood vessel. Tosfos has another possibility. He says that maybe what it means, tzipa yomed, means could you use the plating without the wood? Would it be able to hold? Let's say you take away the base and you just have the plating. So whatever the case is, either way you do it, it wasn't nailed on, or the gold wouldn't have been able to hold up the breads alone. So we're not going to follow the plating. But in second, he says you can't say that teretz. You can't say that here it's really wood because the plating isn't significant. Regarding that Mishnah, that we said that you follow the plating. Rish Lakish asked Rabbi Yochanan, b'tzipa yomed or b'tzipa she'eina yomed? Are we talking about where the plating is nailed on? Are we talking about where the plating is not nailed on? B'shechipes levaz v'zin, are you covering the edges? Are you not covering the edges? There's different ways of plating. You can do it all the way around, including the edge right here. Are you covering the edge? V'amalei, and Rabbi Yochanan responded. You have our article there. V'amalei, and he said to him, Leishna tzipa yomid, leishna tzipa she'eina yomid, leishna chipes levazos, and leishna leichipes levazos. It doesn't matter. It's always considered that the plating is the significant part. So if we have the plating the significant part, so then in our case it should be a shulchan of gold. So what's this whole thing with Rabbi Yochanan? A tabletop that you turn over it's nothing to do with wood. It's really gold. Now here it goes.
If a table that you turn, I wasn't here, but if you
Yes,
turn it over,
a tabletop that if you would turn it over would be a receptacle because it had a lip on the bottom of it.
so it's
it's
potentially
still makabel tameh, yeah. So v'chitema, if you say yatzi shitim chashiva v'lei batli, we're dealing with a very chashuva wood. This is what Rabbi Druin was saying, that it's a chashuva wood. Yatzi shitim, acacia wood. It's what the giraffes eat. I don't know. They reach the from the acacia trees. So that's a type of wood that's not bottled to the plating that's on top of it. Our whole question here was, one second, there's gold on top. Let's consider it gold, not consider it wood. It's plated in gold. So we're saying no. Yes, it's plated in gold, but it's very chashuv a wood. It's acacia wood. So hani Rish Lakish da'amar leishanu ela b'kli achsalgus habam medina sayam. Rish Lakish says that Mishnah that discussed a tabletop and that tray that we learned yesterday from Delphi, that was covered, it had marble on it. That's only talking about if you use a regular forester's wood, regular plain pine, a regular wood, achsalgus, that comes from the Medina Sayam, which was considered a cheap wood. Aval kli masmis, but if it's a significant wood, I don't know the exact translation of masmis. I looked it up. It had it suggested that it was almog wood, but in the Jastro. But do you have a translation in the art scroll? Does it say?
Mahogany.
Is that what it says?
Which
If it's
word?
what does it say?
Ashlas?
Well, mismis. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's a wood. In the Yiddish Mishnayos, when it goes through all the types of herbs and grasses and different things, so it doesn't translate any of them. It just says amin gevix, some sort of growth. So you go through the whole thing. It doesn't say whatever, but then you go to these other books and they tell you, oh no, we figured it out. Yeah. Okay, so kli masmis, but if it's a significant word, chashiva v'lebatli, and it's significant, it's not bottled, then shaper, then we can understand that we have a teretz here, because here we're dealing with atzei shitim, with chashiva wood, acacia wood. In the schools nowadays, they don't say acacia, they say cedar. That's what my students do, keep saying atzei shitim is cedar. When I was a kid, they told me it was acacia. I guess they used a different translation in the Chumash, from the Hertz Chumash to the Gutnik Chumash. They must have switched it. Elul Rabbi Yochanan. But if we go according to Rabbi Yochanan, Damar Kleimas Misnami Batel. Rabbi Yochanan says even if the inside is masmis, which is a significant word, it's also batel to the plating. Ma'ikal Meimar. What are we going to say? And it's interesting because it's Rabbi Yochanan himself that started this whole thing. That's telling me about a tabletop that you turn over, even though it's wood, and his proof is from the Shulchan. Shulchan's no proof. Shulchan is coded. So here is the teretz. Shani Shulchan derachmana karya eitz. This table is different. The table in the temple, the Torah calls it, the Eibishter calls it wood. Shenamar, as it says. This is a quote from Yecheskel. Look at this carefully. The quote says that Hamizbeach, which means the altar, but the Gemara is going to say it's talking about the Shulchan. Hamizbeach, the altar, eitz wood, shalish amis gavaya. It's 3 amas tall, orka shtayim amas. It's long 2 amas, umekzois loiv, and it has edges, I guess. Va'orka v'kirais of eitz, and its length and its corners are wood. Vayidaber Eily, and he said to me, Zeh hashulchan asher lifnei Hashem. This is the table that's in front of Hashem. Pasach b'mizbeach v'siyim b'shulchan. It started with the mizbeach, but it concludes with the shulchan. Very famous Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan v'Rabbi Elazar damri tavai. Rabbi Yochanan and his student Rabbi Elazar both say, Bizman shebeis hamikdash kayam. While the temple was around, mizbeach mechaper al adam. The altar atoned. B'achshav shein beis hamikdash kayam. And now that we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, Shulchan Shel Adam Mechaper Alav, the person's table atones for him. Rashi says, what does it mean, his table? If he gives tzedakah if he gives a portion to the guest. So the table is an atonement. So, but the point over here is that the table was made out of wood.
Rashi, I'm sorry, that's Achnasus Orchem, is that what you mean?
Yeah, Rashi says, Denaisin Prusel Orchem. That's how it's an atonement. Ba'achnasus Orchem, bringing in guests. What is Achnasus Orchem? There's guests that need a place they're traveling, they need a place to stay. That's halachically Hachnasus Orchem. Reb Chaim, the Maral's brother, he wrote a book called Sefer HaChaim. Over there he says that Hachnasus Orchem means even friends and family, all of that is Hachnasus Orchem. It doesn't have the halachic Hachnasus Orchem. Halachic Hachnasus Orchem means that on Shabbos you're not supposed to empty out a storage house. Considered uvdin the chol. It's like the labor to take. You have a garage and you want to clean it out. There's no malacha in that, right? It's not muktzah. It's just a bunch of boxes and things, and so you're not. Yeah, but you're not supposed to do heavy moving and clearing out a whole area. However, for a mitzvah, you're allowed to. What's a mitzvah? So if you have guests from out of town and you need the whole area, and even if it's one guest from out of town and everyone else is coming because of him. So you have a rabbi there and you need a whole area, so you're allowed to clear it out. That's Achnasus Orchem. Okay.
So isn't all this whole discussion about the Mishkan and moving and whether it's still Kodesh, whether it's Kedusha, is really only to talk about our house. It's not to talk about because I think, as he said before, the whole thing is meaningless to discuss this because we don't have a Mishkan anymore. And yes, we do have a Mishkan. It's called Yomi.
Very good. That's a teretz. Where is he? Who asked it yesterday?
But what's the question? The question is how.
Someone asked yesterday. He asked yesterday.
Yeah. He said, "Why are we wasting our time on all of this?"
Right. You follow? Okay.
Yeah.
If I was able to say a pshat, but Rashi already has a pshat. But if I was able to say my own pshat, the shulchan is mechaper means how quickly you grab the food, how much patience you have. Okay. Arba snifim shel zav hayisham. We said that there were 4 supports of gold, v'chulu, etc. Minani mili. How do we know that we have the supports? So Amar Rav Katina. Rav Katina says Amar Kra. It says in the pasuk. We're going to go through the pasuk that discusses the instructions for the shulchan. V'asisa, and you should make karaisav its plates, kapaisav its spoons, kashaisav. Doesn't explain really. Menachos sounds like things that will clean it, but we're going to see exactly what it means. Karaisav, what does it mean, the plates? Eily defusin. These are the molds. Remember we said we had molds? forms, not mold as in mold as in a form that you use to form the bread, to shape it. Kapaisav, the spoons. Eily bazichen. These are the spoons that were filled with the frankincense. We're talking about that went on the table. Kashaisav. What are the kashaisav? Eily snifim. These are the supports on the side. Menachos. What are these things? Menachos sounds like cleaning things. Eily kanim. These are the rods that went in between the bread. And then the pasuk concludes, Asher yusach behen, that our yusach is like to hover over.
How would the rods work? What function in terms of cleaning did they
Well, they
provide?
actually didn't. They didn't do cleaning. It sounds like cleaning, but what they did was they went in between the breads to raise the breads one from the other so the air could get through. It shouldn't become moldy.
Oh, okay.
So Asher yusach behem, that hover over them.
It also had to do with weight. 'Cause the
Oh,
top
that's right.
one-
That's
the
right.
top one
It had to
had
do with weight also.
the top one had two. There was nothing above.
Right. Right.
The rest had one. No,
The
the
rest
rest
had
had
three.
three.
Had three. We're going to learn over
So the
here.
top
It
one
had to
the
do with
had
weight
the-
also.
had the smallest amount.
Yeah. Shemesachim be'mesalechem. That means that they would hover over the bread. With these, they would hover over the bread. Doesn't mean that their breads would hover over them, or doesn't mean they would hover over the bread. Mesachim bahen esalechem. With these,
They weren't for holding the bread. They were putting pressure and putting air.
I know, but when it says mesachim bahen esalechem, what's the grammar here? Does it mean that the rods were hovering over the bread, or they were used to have the bread hover over the bottom? Mesachim bahen esalechem. With them, they would hover over. They used to hover over the bread, but hover over that the bread should hover over, or the. I'm not sure what I don't know the grammar in that. You follow? Hover over the bread, to have the bread hover over, or to hover over.
Does it say it in English?
I don't know. Does it say? Does it translate that? What do you say? What does it say here? This teaches that with the rods we cover the bread. We cover the bread. So that means with the doesn't tell me that the rods cover the bread, or that the bread covers the bread. With the rods, I use the bread to cover the bread. That's because of the weight. That must be the pshat. Okay, Ma'asav Rava. Rava has a question. Our Mishnah. Mishnah says that you're not supposed to put in the rods or take them out on Shabbos. It's not Deicha Shabbos. V'isal k'daitach daraisa. If it's a pasuk that says that you need the rods, amayin Deicha Shabbos. Why doesn't it push off Shabbos? Now the Gemara in Shabbos discusses what's the Isser Shabbos of putting these rods in. What's the big deal? Just put the rods in. So there's different interpretations here, but one of them is that this was instituted. You see, what happened with the laws of Muktzah is that originally people were not careful with the laws of Shabbos in the days of Nehemiah. You know, right at the beginning of the Second Temple, they came back. They didn't know a lot of things. So Nehemiah instituted that you're not allowed to touch anything on Shabbos. Nothing. Not touch. You can't move anything on Shabbos.
Except for food.
Except for food. Then they instituted that there are certain things that you were allowed to touch, certain important utensils that you can't do without, a large spoon or whatever. And then they said, no, actually you can use Keli Shemalachte Leheter. And then you said that even Keli Shemalachte Le'isser, you're allowed to use L'tzarech Gufay Mekaymai, like a hammer you can use to crack a nut. So they first made everything forbidden, and then they had stages of allowing things. The Gemara says that this was instituted. When did they say that you can't set up the kanim on Shabbos? That was at that original prohibition when they first asered everything, when everything was muktzah. That was, and then they allowed things to make it more doable on Shabbos. The other interpretation was no, it's actually a type of construction. It's binyan. It's binyan and stira by. It's not so clear. Binyan and stira b'kelim. It's not so clear if there's such a thing.
Yeah, but aren't all malachas in the base of Mikdash the Deicha Shabbos?
Yeah, But even that we learned that anything that you were allowed to do, Rabbi Akiva said, anything that you were able to do before Shabbos is not Deicha Shabbos. So here we're going to say, but Rava's asking now, it's as if it says in the pasuk that you need to have the rods. So why are you telling me that it's not Deicha Shabbos? It says in the pasuk. If it's in the pasuk, it should be Deicha Shabbos. So Hadam Rava then went back and explained. Lav Milsi Damri. What I said is not correct. The Tanan, as it was taught in the Mishnah, Klal Amar Rabbi Akiva gave a rule. Kol malacha shef of Shabbos. Any malacha that you're able to do from before Shabbos ain't Deichas or Shabbos. Doesn't push off Shabbos. V'hani nami, in these rods, efshel delay dachi Shabbos alayu. It's possible that we don't need to violate Shabbos. Why? Time am I? Why? What's the reason that I have the rods? Delay liafish lechem, so that the bread shouldn't become moldy. V'chi hayshir alei miyafish. In 24 hours, it's not going to get moldy. It's when I leave it there for a week, it's going to get moldy. So therefore, the rods I can put in after Shabbos. It's not even 24 hours, it's 6 hours.
This is the showbread. This is the
12 hours.
It never got moldy anyway, right?
Right, but nevertheless, we don't rely on that
right.
miracle. It was still warm
Right.
the next week. We don't rely on the miracle. We have to set it up in a way that it doesn't distablos.
So what's the answer to that? If it didn't get into what do you call it anyway, right?
Because it wasn't necessary
No.
for those few hours to have it, so we put it on afterwards. We put it on after Shabbos. Kiddetanya, as it says clearly in a Bais, Ketzad, how was this done? Nichnas mi Erev Shabbos. He would come in from Erev Shabbos. Actually, it says Ketzad hu I say. How would he do? V'shaimton, and he would take out the rods. U'menichan l'arker shel shulchan, he would leave them on the side, along the length of the shulchan. Motzei Shabbos nichnas. Motzei Shabbos he would come back. Magbia reisha shel chala. He would lift up the top of the chala. Machnes kana tachtem, and he would put the rod underneath. V'chesem magbia reisha shel chala, and then he would lift up another chala, and he would put the rod underneath. Abba chalais. Now we're going to go through how many there were and where they went. Abba chalais shlicha shleisha kanim. Remember, there's in two sets of chalas, there were 6 in each set. There was a total of 12. When you have 6, you have 5 spaces in between, right? To put the rods. So 4 of these spaces had shleisha kanim, had 3 rods each. What's that? 3 times 4 is 12. But the top one only needed 2 because it didn't have the weight. Like Reb Chaim told us, it only needs 2 because the weight wasn't as heavy. So and underneath the bottom you don't need any. Why? Because it's on the face of the shulchan, and the shulchan itself was cool because of the metal. The metal stayed cool. Although it's strange because if it was still warm, then the metal should heat it up. But gold would get hot, right? Like the silver gets very hot. The becher, if you try to put tea in it. Right. It says, Rashi says over here, V'lei miyafish, Torah shel shulchan v'lei miyafish. Someone said clearly, Torah shel shulchan stays cold. I forget where I saw that. There were other tables there that were made out of marble, which those are always cold. And then the floor, it says in Yoma that the Kohen Gadol would stand up when he was tired, so that he shouldn't fall asleep because it was cold. You know, the marble floor keeps it cool.
Barefoot.
Yeah. But here it's interesting. Okay. Maybe Rashi doesn't mention the cold. Rabbi Gershon doesn't mention the cold. Maybe there's something about the gold that makes it that it doesn't. I don't know. I'm not going to try it at home. Have a gold dish. Okay, all for the sake of science. Tanan Hassam. It was taught there in the Mishnah. You have to follow this carefully, because this is going to be a discussion that's going to take us through a whole page. We have time to do it, it's just, we need to concentrate. Reb Meir Eimer. Reb Meir says, Kol amas shahiyah b'mikdash beinness. All amas, when we mention that anything was measured, it was an amma, it's always the type of amma that's a beinani amma. That means that it has made from 6 tvachim. That's called an average amma. Chutz mizbeach hazav, except for the golden altar, which is in the sanctuary. V'hakeren v'aseiv v'yesayid. The corner of the outer mizbeach, the seiviv, which was the walkway around the mizbeach in the center, right above the midpoint of the mizbeach, and the foundation of the mizbeach, they were not made from amas of 6 tvachim. They were amas, but they were made of amas of 5 tvachim. I guess the thing that we could use as an example for this is that are there 2 types of ounces. There's ounce as a weight and ounce as a liquid measure. So there's amas also. There's 2 types. There's amma baininess, and then there's another type of amma and we have to discuss which amma we're using. Both of them are length. Rabbi Yehuda says, Amais binyan shisha tvachim. It's very simple. You don't have to memorize these 4 things. Mizbeach hazav, keren tzeviv, and you say that's not how it works. When it's construction, so then it's 6 tvachim. Shel kelim. But if it's just vessels, then we use an amma of chamisha. Then we use an amma of 5 tvachim. Rabbi Yehuda is easier to understand, easier to remember, because kelim is always like that. Rabbi Yehuda has 5 letters in his name. I don't know if that helps you remember that he's kelim. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Shnei mikrecha darshu. Both of them learn it from the same pasuk. We're back in Yecheskel now. Ve'ela midas ha-mizbeach. These are the measurements of the mizbeach ba'amis when we're using an amma. The amma that we're using is amma. The amma is amma v'taifach. In order to make this into an amma, you would need to have an amma plus a tefach. It's a type of amma that to measure another amma would be an amma and a tefach, which means that we're using an amma of 5 tefachim. Okay, now we're going to list the things that were measured with this type of amma. V'cheika amma. There's a problem with that vav, because now it's the list. Okay, I forget, someone was saying Madua vav b'cheik. Okay, whatever. Let's for us, we'll just say that it. We'll just read it. Oh yeah. Oh, isn't that interesting? Because he leaves it over there. The Eily, hey, and Advarim. And these are the things. V'cheika amma. They call it a consecutive it's telling you a list. This would be in English. It would be a comma, not an end. But over here it would be like a colon before the list. Okay, cheika amma. We're going to have to explain what that is. Va'ama reichav. That's easier to translate. An amma wide. Ugvula, and its boundary, al svasa, along its edge, saviv, all around. Zeres echad, there's 1 zeres, that's a half a amma. V'zeh gav mizbeach, and this is the top of the mizbeach. That's the pasuk in Yecheskel. Now what the Gemara is going to explain it. We go back. Cheika amma, zeh yisoid. Is everyone familiar with the mizbeach? Let me do it with books. Just 1 second. Okay, so if you notice, the bottom is the largest, right? The bottom is the largest, and then the center, and then the top. So this is not perfect, but the bottom of the mizbeach had something that went around, at least 2 sides. It's called the yisoid, the base. It didn't go around the full mizbeach. It went around. Let's say it was here, started there, it went around this corner, that corner, and stopped here. So we had 1 side and 1 side. This would be the ramp. That didn't have the yisoid. But that we're saying now is that the yisoid was an amma of...
There was a yisoid, it just wasn't perturbing it. The height was there.
Yeah, but it was sort of like added on the side. It wasn't... yeah, that same thing was... Okay,
it's there, it's just not perturbing.
Yeah, it was flush with the we're saying now that this was an amma that was 5 tvachim. What the Gemara is not telling me is it an amma tall or an amma wide, 5 tvachim. It's leaving out because it was an amma up and an amma in, but it's not telling me that point. The Gemara is going to discuss this soon. Amma reichav zeh soiviv. The amma reichav is the soiviv. The soiviv went around the mizbeach. It was a walkway around the mizbeach. You would come up the ramp and you could walk around this way all the way around, and that was an amma, that walkway.
It was an amma wide?
That's what it sounds like, an amma wide. Ugvul el svasasaviv zeres echad. Okay, now on the top of the mizbeach, you had corners. They protruded upwards, and there were 4 corners, and the corners were an amma by an amma. So over here it says these are the corners, which are half an amma. Zeres echad. Okay, we're going to see what it means, because it's actually what it means is that it was half an amma measured from the center, which meant that it was a full amma. Zegav ha-mizbeach. This is the top of the mizbeach. Zeh mizbeach hazav. This is the golden altar, which is not over here. This is on the inside of the sanctuary. There was a golden altar, and over there, that was an amma by an amma. It was a square amma. That was 5 tvachim. Okay. Reb Meir Savar. Reb Meir comes along and says, Zeo ba'amma bas chamisha. These are the only things that are an amma of 5 tvachim. Hakol amas kelim, but all other amas of vessels, ba'amma bas sheish, are an amma that's made out of 6 tvachim. Rabbi Yehuda Savar kazeyu kol amas kelim. This is just an example. Thank you. So, but this is just an example of the amas of the kalim, of all vessels. All vessels are made with only 5. Okay. For the color. Kasal kadaitach. Now we're going back to explain. The Gemara understands. The initial thought is miyasoid vad seiv v'ama bas hey begoiva. From the Yisoid, I made it too high because this book is too wide. So it's a little confusing. It should really be down here. From the Yisoid, up to the top of the Seifid was made with an amma that's 5 tvachim. Let me give you the Gemara outside before we do it inside. We know that the Mizbeach is 10 tvachim to the top. 10 amas to the top. That's including the corners, the protrusion of the corners. Okay, we know that there was a midpoint of the Mizbeach. It was called the Chut HaSikra. It was a red line that went around the Mizbeach. That was it was a demarcation for where the blood that was sprinkled on the upper part of the altar went, and where the blood,
like a gartel
that went around.
It was in the middle of
It was all the way around in the center of the Mizbeach, center of the height.
There was like a line,
Then
a little line.
the walkway, we're going to prove, was 1 amma above the Chut HaSikra. That meant that if there was a kohen that was meant to sprinkle